Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good evening. How are you doing, Dave?
Doing well, doing well.
All
Been looking
right.
forward to this.
So this is the first time I've had Dave Janson here, and Dave is a good friend of mine, and he's a big F1 fan. So what I want to do first is that have him do a proper intro about himself and his passion for F1, and then we'll quickly go and talk about the Monaco and the Barcelona Grand Prix. Fair enough?
Fair enough. So first
All
of
right.
all, thank you for having me. I know we've talked about F1 quite a bit, and we haven't had an opportunity to do the podcast. So thank you for having me. It's an honor to be participating in such a high quality podcast of yours. Now, for myself, I've probably been a Formula One fan since around 2015 when my wife and I first met, because we somewhat bonded over watching Formula One together. And at the time, I was just kind of dabbling in the sport, and we very quickly became really good fans of Lewis Hamilton, who at the time had raced for Mercedes for a couple years. I think Lewis had started racing for Mercedes in 2013. So we started watching him in 2015. So relatively early in his Mercedes career, right? But, very quickly we followed his progress along the way. My wife and I, we kind of just fell in love with the sport from there. I ended up going to a race in Austin in, 2023. And that was the first race that I have ever attended in person. And it was like mind blowing how fast these cars went, how fast they ripped around the turns, the energy of it all. It was just amazing seeing the drivers. So that just dug me in that much deeper. So now, as you know, Shri, I, have two young children. I have a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. So all my watching of Formula One racing since they were born has been essentially after the fact. So we have to record everything, then we have to watch it, usually around 9:30, which is when we're doing this podcast right now. So essentially, I can't talk to anybody about it while it's happening. So no live conversations, and I'm very thankful that you've avoided spoilers, in our discussions about F1. But yeah, I love it. And I think that both Monaco and Barcelona were excellent races. Both blew my expectations away, let's just say.
Yeah. So let's quickly get to both of them, and maybe we'll start with Monaco. But I think before I get to Monaco, I know one of the things is that you did show me the helmet that you bought recently.
Yeah.
So I think with Hamilton winning yesterday, which was very surreal. I mean, it was funny because with you, I cannot have a live conversation. I think I did spoil it maybe last year or so. But ever since that, I have a good friend of mine, and we were texting back and forth almost like every turn that we're actually texting each other about the race. But coming down to the European doubleheader that we just saw, one in Monaco and one in Barcelona, let's quickly go down to Barcelona. First, let's go to Monaco. So we had Kimi Antonelli winning that race, edging out, have like even Max Verstappen. I think, in Monaco, we had Verstappen actually didn't even start of the grid, right? I mean, he had a problem. He couldn't even get there. He just went to his boat and he just said he'll go home and watch it. But let's quickly talk about, and there's a lot of controversy we can get to. So you got Kimi Antonelli, Lewis Hamilton, and then Pierre Gasly, who just got promoted over Isaac Hadjar. We will talk about that. But give me your thoughts on the Monaco Grand Prix first, and then we'll talk about a couple of the controversies there, and then we'll slowly go to the Barcelona.
Sure. Yeah. What a race. And yes, congratulations to Lewis Hamilton for his first win with Ferrari in Barcelona, but we'll get there. Now, Monaco, historically the most boring race in the season, honestly.
Right.
Every single season, Monaco is an absolute snooze fest. And this year it was not, which was very surprising. Probably the most prestigious race, that they have, just because of the yachts. You're next to the water. You have the celebrities show up. The prestige is absolutely incredible for this race. So it's always a good time watching it, even though you kind of expect it to be a snooze fest. The reason why it's usually boring is because the roads are extremely tight. There is almost no overtaking during the race. In fact, year over year, there's been historically like you can count on one hand the number of overtakes that happen during a race in Monaco. Sometimes there's like one or two. It's actually pretty crazy. So this year, much different. And we have a few people to thank for that. The first is, like you stated, Max dying on the start grid, right? Could not get his car moving. And it was hilarious. Now, this is coming from a person that is not a huge Max Verstappen fan. So, for me, it was hilarious watching him stall on the grid and then every single person passing and passing and passing. And, you're sitting there like, my God, like what went wrong? This is like catastrophic, right? And then of course he retires his car pretty much a lap later because he's basically like, I don't even want to try anymore. I'm out, right? So Max is out. So now that Max is out, now you have, this kind of opens the door and, you start to see the front pacers starting to go up. Kimi gets like a 5-second lead over the entire grid. And you kind of are settled in to say, okay, well, wherever the places are now, that's how they're going to end because that's how Monaco goes. But then the second factor in this race was the FIA. They start handing out penalties left and right. You get a penalty, you get a penalty, you get a penalty. Mostly for speeding in the pit lane, which is kind of a dumb thing. You don't really see that often in any race, but this race, everybody was getting penalties. And you were like, what is happening? Everybody was getting penalties. Now, if they actually showed why this was happening. It wasn't because they were going too fast in the pit lane. That's what everybody thought. It was because they were cutting corners in the pit lane. For some reason this year, they made the pit lane extra curvy, right? So you had to kind of curve around this white line and nobody really expected this or saw it. I don't know, maybe their vision was distorted. So people were cutting the white line. Every time they did that, 5-second penalty, 5-second penalty, right?
Was it like the other thing also, the pit entry was like, what is that? They said it was like measured the loop zone as 77 meters shorter or 77 centimeters shorter or something like that, which led to a lot of these unjust penalties. In fact, I think even when you looked at some of the replays and you could see the car barely touching these things and then they were getting a penalty.
Yeah.
So I think it was, it was a weird race. Like you said, right? I mean, typically Monaco race, once you get the lead, you get the lead. But, right from the get-go with Max, didn't even get a head start on that. I mean, he was pretty upset. You could see it. And then I think again, we had a controversy at the end. I mean, when the race finished, it was very clear. It was Kimi. You had Lewis Hamilton and Hartstar. And then out of the blue, Pierre Gasly jumps to third spot. Your thoughts on that part? And then, was it justified?
Yeah, well, Gasly was getting penalties left and right, just like everybody else, and I think he ended up getting a total penalty of 10 seconds, which completely knocked him down, but there's definitely some controversy in there. And I think they took a second look at that after the race, right? But, I think ultimately, that wouldn't have even been a factor if it wasn't for the 2 crashes on the last turn of the race, right? So the last turn on the race, the pavement was lifting up, which is another stupid thing. I don't know what the FIA or whoever was doing with paving this street, but the street was lifting up, right? So you had gravel and pebbles all over the place. And who ends up crashing on that turn first? Of course, it's Lance Stroll, who crashes all the time. So nobody really thinks twice about it. But then who crashes immediately after him? You have Leclerc. Leclerc crash, same spot, same condition. Yep. He hits the pebbles and he crashes into the wall, right?
His second, and then he had a second consecutive DNF, right? I mean, Leclerc even we'll get to that. We'll get to Barcelona too, right? But I think, interestingly, when watching it live, you watched it on the record for the Monaco on the tape delay, right? So when my friend and I were watching it, and we're watching it, we didn't know why the race was stopped because we didn't know what the thing was going on. And then actually I had to go on X or Twitter or something like that because no one was explaining it for a while. And then you said the gravel came up, and then my friend was like, "What are they talking about?" And I said, it was kind of a very interesting, surreal scenario that happened in Monaco. And then I didn't expect that. That's the first, I would think.
For all the money that is spent on Formula One, you can
Probably
only
the
imagine
richest.
millions and millions of dollars. They can't get somebody in here to pave the road correctly for the race. I mean, I don't know. That was just like mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, when they red flagged the race after Leclerc crashed, because they're like, everybody's going to crash on this thing if we don't stop it. They red flag it. It's like lap 68, 67, something like that. So close to the end. And then they have like this video snapshot of the FIA director coming out there and kicking the gravel around. And he's looking at it and he's just like, oh, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? He's kicking the gravel. And they bring out like 20 guys with brooms and they're sweeping and they're sweeping and they're sweeping. And you're just like, this is, what we've come down to, right?
Yeah.
Guys with brooms sweeping gravel. It's just really fun.
In one of the richest,
Yeah.
race of all time, right? With all
Right.
yeah. So,
Right. So then you have the grid start, right? And Hamilton, of course, has an opportunity at that point because he's in P2 position. Kimi had his massive lead is eliminated because they have a grid start after the red flag, and Hamilton has a real good chance to try to pass him right there. But unfortunately, he can't pull it out. Kimi takes the lead again, zips off. George is in third at that point, if you remember. So you have Kimi, Hamilton, George, and then George does some stupid stuff. He breaks his car and holds up the whole entire pack. He's already out of the game because he had like a 10-second penalty or something like that, right? So he's out. Gasly has a 10-second penalty. So because both Russell and Gasly had the penalties, who gets third place? Hadjar, right? And Hadjar, that was his, I think that was his second podium finish of his entire career.
Yes, right, yeah. Because not this year. Did he have any podium finish this year?
Not this year, no.
Not this year, I thought. Yeah, that's right.
That is his second in his entire career. Last year was his rookie year, and I'll never forget Hadjar because on his rookie year in Australia, first race, rookie year, he crashed on the formation lap. And I'll never forget that. He crashed right into the wall at the formation. So for some reason, every time I see Hadjar, I'm like, oh, that's the guy that crashed on his formation lap in his first race ever. I mean, feel terrible for the kid. He's a young guy, but that's how I remember him.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting now, Gasly actually, he started ninth. He completed a strong drive, finished in fourth place. Then he became third following Russell's drive-through. Then Gasly was hit with two 5-second penalties, I think, for speeding in the pit lane. And then that demoted him to seventh. And then they promoted, Hadjar to the first carrier report. But now, again, they submitted the right of review. Back and forth they go. Now, the FIA stewards actually rescinded penalties and reinstated his third place podium but demoted Hadjar to fourth. So, again, the news is still reverberating after, we're on to we're even done with the next race, and it was still, going on back and forth, the Monaco one. And I'm sure, hopefully it's not done yet, I think. So,
yeah.
Again,
the reinstatement tree is that they reinstated Gasly, stating the FIA stated like, oh, we made some mistakes assessing the speed limit or assessing the penalties that we gave people in the pit lane. Yep. People already took the 5-second penalty when they pit. So basically, if they reinstate it for Gasly, they should have to reinstate it for everyone they assessed the penalty on, but they can't. Absolutely. Because the 5 seconds was already taken during their pit stop in the race, right? So people were punished when really they shouldn't have been. So, it's all kind of messy. Yeah.
Yeah. What was interesting was in that Monaco race, going back to the Monaco race, you had obviously, of course, both of us watched the Drive to Survive. We had where Carlos Sainz went and picked Williams, right? So he didn't finish. Leclerc didn't finish. Stroll didn't finish. We talked about it. Lando Norris didn't finish. And then Max Verstappen didn't finish. And then Bottas and, Oliver Bierman too. So you had as many as like 7 drivers who didn't finish the race. But let's get to the positive things there, where Kimi actually won his 5th in a row. Unbelievable this kid is. And, he's right now in first place, followed by Hamilton. And then, now we talked about Gasly and then Hadjar and then Piastri rounding out the top 5. But then your thoughts on, let's talk about Kimi's performance so far this year. And then we'll jump to the Barcelona after that, because I think there's a lot covered there too. So your thoughts on Kimi's performance this year, especially.
Monaco was his 5th straight win. I mean, he is a phenom of a kid, which he essentially was groomed to be by Mercedes, right? Mercedes brought him into their development program early when he hadn't even made a name for himself yet in the Formula 4, 3, or 2. They brought him in under their wing to train him to be their next Formula 1 seat. So he was groomed from such an early age to do this. But he has talent. He has raw talent that I don't think I've ever seen in somebody that young. I mean, what is he? 19?
19.
He's 19. I mean, 19. What was I doing when I was 19? I wasn't winning 5 straight Formula 1 races, that's for sure. He is absolutely incredible, and he's very humble. If you listen to him in interviews, he's focused on work. He doesn't mess around in the politics, or he doesn't complain. He just works and wins, and it's quite incredible. I think that we are watching somebody who is going to be the next Lewis Hamilton or the next Senna.
It's a lot of pressure on him, but you know what? I mean, no one can compare with, obviously Hamilton, but I think it was, and we'll get to the Barcelona one, but one thing I did see yesterday after the race was it's very, very nice gesture. I don't know if you got to watch it on your tape delay. It was after Lewis had completed the race, won it. He jumps into the Ferrari, the crowd there, and then comes back. But it was actually Kimi who was right there with him, give him a hug, smiling. I mean, Kimi should have finished second. I mean, technically speaking, he should have probably gotten 18 points, but you know what? Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be. And again, we could talk about the strategy. We'll talk about the strategy on the tires and everything like that in this race. But your final thoughts on the Monaco? Kimi wins 5th. Obviously, Verstappen, just jumps on a boat. And, I think there was a cool thing about him saying, they did ask him something about, are you going to watch the race? And he goes, no, I live like literally 5 minutes away. So I think I'll go home. It was kind of classic Max. That's
classic
it.
Max, boo-hoo, woe is me. He jumped on his yacht and went back to his penthouse apartment, wherever that may be in Monaco.
Yeah.
Funny story about his apartment in Monaco. While they were, how the drivers do.
Yes, I did see that.
Did you see that part where he was like, that's my house right there?
That's my house, yeah.
And he's like, that's my house. And he announced it to the world. So now everybody knows where his house is exactly in the building in Monaco.
Well, he probably can't get in it easily, but we'll see.
Yeah, but that was funny.
But maybe I'll go check it out when I'm in Monaco. So we'll see where he is when I can see that. Anyway,
you should.
Let's quickly go down to the next race. It was a beautiful day in Barcelona yesterday. As part of our second doubleheader. And as we just talked about at the start of the podcast, we did talk about how this was the 106th win for Lewis Hamilton. And we'll get down to each and everything. But before we get to Lewis Hamilton, it was Russell who got the pole position for Mercedes. Then I think it was it Hamilton, and then Antonelli, and then I think those are the top 3, I think, when they started the race, right? And then your initial impressions on the entire race and how Lewis, I mean, at one point, I think my friend and I were texting towards by the 55th lap, 60th lap or something, Lewis was flying, and every lap he was gaining 1 or 2 seconds. And I'm sure when you're watching it, you knew it was over until, I mean, you saw Antonelli, he pretty much kind of I think his tires gave out. And then after that, you were just probably hoping for Lewis to finish the race because he had such a big lead, 14 seconds, I think, by the time he won. So your thoughts on Lewis's historic win yesterday, or his first win as a Ferrari driver and his record-breaking 106th win. So yes. I know, I mean, Antonelli lost to catch up to Lewis, but let's quickly talk about Lewis yesterday because it was his day yesterday.
Man, my boy Lewis pulls out the win with Ferrari. It is so incredible to see him starting to put the pieces together with a new team. Last year was, on paper, Lewis's worst season, right? And it was his first season with Ferrari. If you remember, he took a big risk leaving Mercedes, and he went into a team that was very different, and he, took a big contract with them. They paid him a lot of money, and everybody was like, this is a financial decision, but it's not a good one professionally, right? And that last season showed that, and everybody was like, my God, what has he done? especially because Mercedes was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
This year, he's starting to get it. And Barcelona was his race. And not more importantly, and not only was Lewis Hamilton's race, it was Ferrari's race as a team, because they implemented a 3-stop strategy that nobody else was trying for. Nobody else, right?
Mm.
They came out on hards just like everybody else. I think they came out on hards, if I'm remembering his first tire choice. But then out of nowhere, around lap, like, I don't know, 12, 15 or something like that, he goes in for a second stop. And everybody's like, what is he doing? He's going for a 3-stop strategy. He'll never win. So he came out, he has mediums on. Everybody else has hards, and he starts flying. He starts ripping through people. Boom, 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 boom. He's getting past this lap. He's moving through. But at the same time, you're like, well, this is cool, but this won't last. His tires are going to burn out. He's going to have to make his planned 3rd stop, and then he's going to be left in the dust by everybody else who's only taken 2 stops, right? That was a strategy that Ferrari implemented, right? That's a race strategy as a team. Now, Lewis Hamilton executed it very well, but that's a race strategy. So in my mind, I was like, it's so cool to see him moving, but like, my God, I know this is going to come to an end near the mid to late part of the race, but that wasn't the case, right? So lap, I believe it was, when was it? I'm not sure what lap it was, right? But you have Alonso stalling out, middle of the track. He's able to push his car onto the grass. Virtual safety car comes out. This is right around when Lewis and Ferrari were planning their 3rd stop. Boom, VSC. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God, this could be it, right?
This could be it.
The announcers are like, oh my God, he got it. He got what he needed, right? But
Yes.
it's not a guarantee, right? One, the virtual safety car comes out after Lewis passes the pit stop lane. So now he has to go all the way around at a fairly, at safety car speeds and get back into the pit lane before the safety car ends. So we're sitting there biting our nails. We're like, oh my God, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? He's roots around.
He literally made it like at the nick of time.
He pulls in, he makes it, right?
Yes. I think it was a lap 40. That was a lap 41 when Alonso retired. I was just
41. Right.
Yeah.
41. He makes it. He makes it.
Yeah, that kind of gave like a Hamilton like a low loss pit stop for fresh tires. I think he took the lead back on 42, and then after that, it was just Hamilton all the way. Like I said, every lap he was adding a second. I think he won it by 19 seconds. I think, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, a lot of drama. Leclerc, Antonelli. Let's talk about those guys. Antonelli overtook Russell. That was a great. I think it was before turn 1, and it was like phenomenal when Antonelli took over Russell. And then, right after completing the pass, he suffered like an electrical shutdown. Immediate retirement. Boom. I mean, and I think Russell got to second. Got to the Mercedes podium. Your thoughts on Antonelli's strategy?
Well, Antonelli was a shoo-in for the podium in this case, right? And he was working his butt off. He passes George, like you said, and then boom, around lap like 68 or something like that, electrical failure. The Mercedes is starting to look unreliable, in my opinion. How many issues Russell had? How many issues has Kimi had now, right? That car, it's fast, yes, but like, I don't know, man, there's some problems underlying in that car. Maybe it's the electrical system, something, but this is starting to become a trend here, right? So you got Kimi dead. Now you got Leclerc, same lap, dead. Right. So 2 front runners you have out. Now, luckily, Hamilton is well ahead at this point. Right. So you end up finishing, what was it, Lewis, George, and Lando. George, obviously, I think, is next to Lewis the biggest benefactor of this, because
a lot of pressure on George, especially after what happened in Monaco, right? I mean, I think one thing was that with Kimi winning 5th in a row, there was a lot of pressure for Russell to perform in this race.
Right. Well, Russell needs to beat Kimi. I mean, I think he sees his competition as being Kimi. I think Russell is, this is breaking for him, right? Because he's been waiting for this Mercedes spot for so, so long. He has it. Lewis leaves Mercedes, so he's like, I'm the guy now. I'm number one. And now you
Yep.
got this 19-year-old come in and kicking your ass every week.
Not only that, he was like won 5 in a row. I mean, think about that though. Think
Yeah.
about how many races that Russell has won in his career to what Kimi has won. That's actually pretty interesting, right? So again, and then I never thought Norris would finish third, and he finished third. He came from
And
nowhere.
you got
You
Norris
know,
in there. So, it was really cool to see. And like you said, 106 wins for Lewis, first time in a Ferrari, really. And then if you noticed when he came in after the win, every single racer, every single driver came up, shook his hand, tapped his helmet. Like everybody was like giving him credit. And it was just really wonderful to see. It was emotional, I think. It
yeah,
was an emotional.
I no, it was emotional, and that was his first win. I mean, if you look at it this year, right? You had Hamilton. Sorry, Hamilton has won one. Obviously, Russell won one this year. Mercedes. I mean, Antonelli has won 5. I think those are the 7, right? I mean, you're right, because we didn't have that entire stretch in Dubai, and we missed those races. So it's only 7 races, and only 3 drivers have won the F1 races this year. But interestingly, even after Hamilton won it yesterday, I mean, obviously he's untouched. He's one of the greatest drivers of all time.
On his way. He could get that last championship. That would
Yes,
cement his name in history.
that would cement his name. Yes, yeah. But to be honest, after the race right now, and obviously Antonelli didn't win it, so he didn't get his 18 point, because that would have been 174, and that would have given him at least 59-point lead if he had become second place. But right now, there's only 41 points separate him and who else? Hamilton is number 2, and Russell is at number 3 at 106. So again, the championship is not over yet. I mean, you know that, right? Now with this, you got. I'm just trying to think about how many we have right now, right? You got, obviously we have Austria next, which is like on June 28th. We got a 2-week. I think it's 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks or something like that. And then you got British, then you got Belgian, Hungarian, Dutch. That's 5, Italian 6. And again, you got the Madrid. You got one more, right? You got another Spanish Grand Prix, right? One before that, Madrid circuit. And then you got Azerbaijan. Then you go to the Asia stuff. You go to Singapore, then you go back to United States, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, Qatar. So we have a lot of racing left right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you have a lot of racing. And I mean, I know Austria is historically a very fast-paced Grand Prix. The gap between Lewis and Kimi, and also Mercedes and Ferrari, has shortened. Right, the championship in both the constructors and the individual drivers is within reach. It's not locked down, right? So,
absolutely. I mean, you talked about constructor. I think right now Mercedes is at 262,
yeah.
Ferrari is at 190, and then McLaren is at 141. I think right now it's a Mercedes versus Ferrari in both the constructors and drivers, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would agree. And if Hamilton is really fine-tuning his driving, but also his relationship with his team, and they're starting to make decisions together effectively, I think they could be unstoppable, right? They just need to put the pieces together race after race, and they need to beat this 19-year-old kid that's out there right now. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
They're going up against quite a bit.
But I think you did bring up a very good point on both the drivers and constructors, something that's going to impact all the races going forward. With Antonelli's late race, did not finish thing yesterday, caused by like a electrical shutdown. And then Russell also facing some power unit challenges earlier this season. I think if they don't resolve these electrical issues, I think it's very critical for them to maintain this lead. If they don't solve for those, I think Ferrari sees an opening right now. And I do think that this is where, I think, 2 years ago, when Max was pretty much winning every race known, I mean, every race, right? You knew that you thought it was like the race is over, the constructor's over, Red Bull is winning it, everything is done. last year was much closer because remember, it just came down to 2 points, right? It came down. I mean, it was such a big lead for, Lando Norris, and then it became like a rat race towards the end. Now, what will be interesting is that towards the end, there are two races at the end, which is Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So I think either of the races, whether it's Ferrari or Hamilton, and then Antonelli, Russell, I don't think they're going to wait until the end because they don't know what the situation is going to be. Like you already had all the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix all canceled before. I'm hoping everything should be fine, but I think at the end, you put two of these races, Abu Dhabi and Qatar, at the end. I think if I am either of these drivers, I'm not waiting for those. I'm trying to get that lead winning before that.
100%, right? So Mercedes is going to take those cars back to the shop and they're going to figure out why they keep dying mid-race. Because like I said, there's problems. Those problems need to be fixed. And you bet that Mercedes is going to try to do that by Austria. Right? Now, George, I think, has been struggling quite a bit to find pace at times, especially when compared to Kimi. Kimi is just destroying the laps in pretty much every race he's won. He's won by a fairly good margins, right? So he is able to find pace that his teammate cannot. Russell needs to fix that if he wants to be anywhere close to contention going forward, right? Now, I told you, Lewis, he needs to communicate well with his team. They need to make good strategic decisions because I think Mercedes might have the edge from a car perspective, but Lewis is a thinker and he can outsmart his competition if his car is just slightly slower. And that's what I'm hoping he can do in the upcoming races.
Yep. So let's quickly go down. A couple of things I saw here, right? I think one of the analysis for both of them. One, yesterday was the big tire management thing that was big, especially under that thermal load that was huge there. 3 stops versus 2 stops. Your thoughts on that strategy, actually?
Well, it's on a, track by track basis, right? The strategy that you want to leverage. A lot of times when you see a three stop strategy, they are hoping for a safety. They're hoping for a safety. And that is it's a bold strategy. But if you do like the percentages, right, more times than not, there's a safety car at some point during a race. So you basically are hoping that happens. Now, if you don't want to take that risk, if you don't want to roll the dice on a safety car, now you have to go to a 2-stopper, or in the case of Monaco, it's a 1-stop. You're just forced to do a stop, right? But most races, you're going to see a 2-stop strategy. Now, you can still gain favorability by having a safety car during a 2-stop strategy. But there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, right? Tire management, are you going to push on your first set of tires? You're going to push on your second set of tires. What tires do you have available after, practice and qualification? All of that factors in. Tire management is a big part of strategy and winning. Honestly, you have to have good tire strategy in general. Some teams do it better than others.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that, there's been a lot of haters this year about the new battery style, right, of driving. That you have to manage your battery constantly. You have to choose what mode to be in at all times throughout the race. You have to recharge your battery at times when you overuse it. And, there's a whole hybrid system at play this year that we didn't have last year. And a lot of people, including drivers, have complained about this. You and I have talked about how Max is very vocal about how he hates it. And he's like, this is the stupidest engine I've ever driven.
And then he even said that he may not even drive. Like, he's kind of thrown a lot of threats. I think that may be.
Oh, he said he's
like, again. I'm telling you right now, watch the off season this year, depending on how Max finishes and how Russell finishes. I mean, Kimi is fine. Like, Kimi has won 5 in a row. Like, he can win a couple more races here and there. He'll be fine. I mean, he may not, but I do think that opens up, he does have a big lead. But even after winning 5 races, his lead is only 41. And that tells you how close the drivers' championships are this year, especially, I think even Russell is in the mix, right? I think he's got 106. So I think he's still, not too far away, right? So we got the three things that I saw, right? I would say themes across these two. One, we talked about the tire management. 2 was the timing, the pit lane timing loop,
Yeah.
things in Monaco. And then the Mercedes power unit reliability or unreliability. And then there's some questions on other drivers as well. I mean, Max finished fourth yesterday, didn't finish in Monaco. So your thoughts on, where he was such a dominant driver last 2 years ago. Last year, he came within 2 points away
Oh, yeah.
from the championship. So it's not that, and this year he's not won a single race, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's two things going on there. The first is I don't think he knows how to drive this car given the 50-50 battery split. And I think him being so vocal about it shows he's struggling. He is not catching on to how to manage the battery like other drivers are, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, there are gains that you can get from properly managing your battery. And I think Kimi is a clear example of that, right? His car's not slow. He's way faster than George, his teammate. Max can't seem to understand how to use this thing. Now, that's just me speculating, but given how much he complains about the thing, it seems like the case. Second thing, Red Bull got out-manufactured in their car this year, in my opinion. I think they had a really fast car, back when Max was winning. Their car was unstoppable. Then McLaren came in. Now it might be Mercedes and Ferrari's year. I don't know. But this is an ebb and flow. I like seeing different constructors winning because it shows that there's a tight gap between the constructors. When you see one team just blowing it out year after year after year, I think you have to start asking yourself, do they have more money than everybody else? Do they have more R&D than everybody else? What are they doing differently that makes their car so good?
And I think the parity in the sport is very good, right? And when if you see what, 2 years ago it was Max, last year Lando, Piastri, right? And this year, Max a little bit. And then this year, so far as Antonelli, but Hamilton out of nowhere. So you didn't hear Hamilton's name in the last 2 years. So now you're hearing him along with Russell. I mean, Russell is now in the third place. So I think to your point, and it was Red Bull. Last year was obviously McLaren, right? And this year, you got Ferrari and Mercedes going back and forth. So I think it's exciting for the sport. I think I'm really excited about the other rest of it. Now it's wide open. I think both the constructors and drivers are wide open. So your last minute thoughts, David. This was phenomenal. And I'm sure we'll do more of these because I think you're my F1 guy. So you can go much more detail than I can. So I think it was great. I mean, it was great. You could go into details, and I think Hamilton and Antonelli winning the last two European doubleheader. And we'll wait. We don't have a race this week, and we have a week after that. So that'll be a very critical race on. I think a lot of open questions on how is like you said, Mercedes. How are they going to bounce back? Two, Hamilton. Well, he's at a high right now. How is he going to? I mean, he's won 106 races, so I don't think motivation is any issue for him. Now, the next thing is Max. He knows he's only fourth. He knows he's close, so he's going to have something to prove. Leclerc. Lot of open questions. What's happening there, right? I mean, he's got two DNFs right now, but then it opens up a lot more. And then the other thing is Alonso last year was phenomenal. He had a podium finish, but Alonso, is this his last year? A lot of open questions for sure. So
yeah, and yeah, thank you for having me. I've had a blast. Austria is going to be very interesting. It is a aggressive track. There's a lot of speed to be had, a lot of passing, overtaking opportunities. Red Bull is coming through with a major upgrade package to their vehicle. I believe they're trimming down their weight. They're also some aerodynamic improvements, I believe. So they're trying to be competitive in Austria, right? And, Max is going to be trying to make up for lost time, and the incidents that we've had in the past here. So I'm going to be paying close attention. I don't know if I'll watch it live. Probably not, but we will see. My hope is that Lewis is able to take this win from Barcelona and run with it. And we start seeing him on podiums every week. That's what I want. And I'll be cheering him on after the fact because I'll be watching a recording.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I think the next one is you said it's we have Austria, right? Is it Austria next one?
Oscar.
Yeah, it's Austrian Grand Prix and it's Red Bull Ring. That's the home of Red Bull, right?
That's why they've planned their upgrade for this race. They want to win. They're
Yeah,
coming in with, some big equipment here, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what
yeah,
happens, right? Max has to manage his battery. With the 50-50 split, you are paying attention to driving just as much as you are that battery, right? And
right.
it is strenuous mentally to do that. You got the G-force, slamming on your body, and then you have to look at your battery levels and be like, oh, I better recharge that thing. I
Yeah.
mean, oh, I better activate overtake mode, right? So it's a lot, right? Yeah. On that note,
So
next
yeah,
year, I don't know if you've heard, but next year they're changing that. I think they're going to like a 60
yes,
40 split, and they're going to V10 engines. So yeah, I think it's either next year or 2028. I got to check on that, but
yeah,
changes
because
are
I
coming.
mean, yeah, we have enough races to talk about now. So I think it's yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it. But your thing, I think it was a good thing for Ferrari, and you know that for the Ferrari principal. I think he was in Monaco. I don't think he was on the race thing, right? He had some health issues. So for him to be there yesterday with Lewis, hugging Lewis, and you could see the emotion yesterday, Dave. I mean, watching it live, you could see the emotion. It almost felt like and it was interesting, right? Guess who was interviewing Lewis after the race was done?
Wasn't it?
What's the Nico Rosenberg? I think so.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it Nika?
Yeah, yes. It was him, and I think it was funny because it was awkward. I think because my friend mentioned it too. He said, "Hey, did you see like Nico interviewing Hamilton? Did they ever forget that little incident they had that they wouldn't talk to each other for years?" So I thought it was, but you know what? Overall, no sideline. Those things aside, the race itself was phenomenal. The race was great. You could see the emotion for Hamilton, the way he was like, and you could
He was crying.
see how he cracked, and then it would see how hard each of the Ferrari folks have worked. And I'll tell you what, he wins two more. He's going to be like he's already like in Ferrari. I think they're going to like put him in like a pedestal right now. They're
Well,
back. Ferrari is back.
Ferrari's
And I
back.
think he's back for sure. Like, I mean, even last year, right? Last year they finished what third? Was it? Did they finish third in the constructors? Yes, last year.
I don't remember where they placed last year. Yeah, I don't know.
I have to go back and look at it.
But,
Yeah, but
they've always been, slightly better than the middle, right? I think that they've been competitive. They just haven't been able to touch Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren over the last couple years. But, they've been around there. Now they have an excellent driver. They just have to bring the car and communicate really well with Lewis. Communication was a big issue last year, right? They were arguing over the radio. It was heartbreaking to see
yeah.
the problems that they were having last year. And it seems like those are fixed.
I think so. I think they're, even last year, I think you could see the frustration in Lewis, but seems like a lot of things have been worked out. And let's see if Mercedes is going to turn this around, after, the issues they've had the last few weeks, including yesterday for Kimi. So I think this is great, Dave. I think we'll wrap it up. And any last minute thoughts before what to look forward to for rest of the season before we put a wrap on this?
If Lewis wins the championship, I might be ordering a yellow helmet to go next to
Wow.
my Mercedes
Oh,
helmet.
wow. All right. So that's fair. You already have a helmet, no?
We will see. But I have so my helmet is from 2024, his last season with
Yeah.
Mercedes, and he had an excellent career with Mercedes. It was where I became a fan, and I became a fan of him. So
Yeah.
I thought it was only right to get the 2024 Lewis Hamilton Mercedes helmet, right? But hey, anything's possible. If he wins this year, who knows?
I think it's possible. Anything is possible. And I think if you look at it, if anything that you proved, and I think it is funny when I know you watched the recording, and my friend and I were watching almost in disbelief, and he's a big Hamilton fan too, and and of course my other friend who's also watches, he's a big Hamilton fan. So all of us were texting during the live thing saying, okay, just let him finish the race, not like Kimi, because we were like, but you know what? His tires were going fine. You knew they were saying, bring it home, just bring it home. And I think you knew that even he was not going to be denied yesterday. So, all right. So, Dave, this is good. I will make some edits. Usually I typically do some edits and things like that, and then we'll wrap it up. So just hold on a bit. Good night, and then hold on a bit while I stop the recording. All
Sounds
right.
good.
Good night.
Have a night,
Yeah.
Sri.
Good
Thanks
night.
for having me.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.